Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mike here, and the topic for today is the Acura NSX, or the Honda NSX, depending on where you live. And the reason why I bring this up is because I just got done watching Motor Trend's review of the new NSX, and I guess, the car is now finally hitting production, and owners are going to be taking delivery of the car shortly, and I hope so for their sake, because I've been waiting for how long. But I wanted to talk about the old NSX first for just a little bit, and why I love that car, and why I think a lot of people love that car. I think you'd be pretty hard-pressed to find anybody who's like, oh yeah, the NSX, I hate that car. So what made the original NSX so great? Well, for me, it was because it came down to three really important things. Number one was the fact that it was kind of an everyday supercar. It was pretty cheap to buy, cheap to run and maintain, and it was reliable. You could drive it every day. Now, we use the term supercar a little bit loosely for the NSX because the NSX was never about crazy numbers or anything like that. More of a sports car, but nonetheless a very respectable performance car any way you look at it. The second reason is because the NSX was a pure and simple sports car in the best possible way. It was all about just being lightweight, being connected to the road, and having a mid-mounted, high-revving, naturally aspirated engine. What more do you need? I mean, that is something that is still something that we value today. I mean, look at the Cayman GT4, exact same formula, and people love that car. So that was definitely one of the reasons why the NSX was so awesome back in the day. And also, the last thing is, of course, one of the most important, which is simply the styling. I mean, just look at it. It's just such a sexy car. And we're talking about a car that's old. I mean, that car is old now, and you still see one on the road and you're like, damn, that thing looks good. And just the styling, it looked exotic without being stupid and silly, and it just looks so good. Even still today, like I said, you see one on the road, you still think, wow, that is a good looking car, and it really just speaks to the genius of the original design. Just everything was good about this car. It kind of looked like a Ferrari almost in some ways. Like I said, very exotic, but without being silly and ridiculous, and all the proportions were just right, and it's just such a striking car to look at. So that was definitely an important thing, and one of the reasons why I have always and still continue to love the NSX. Fast forward to the new NSX, and it's a pretty drastic departure from the old car in every single way. Whereas the old car, like we said, was all about kind of being pure and simple, the new car is all about technology. And that's just the way things are going these days. I totally get that. But you really get the impression that the designers and the engineers wanted this car to be a world-class supercar. We're dealing with still a 6-cylinder engine, but now 2 turbochargers have been added, along with some electric motors, as in typical modern-day fashion. And, for a total combined output of 573 horsepower. But that is where things kind of start to worry me. So you look at 573 horsepower and you think, okay, that's a lot, and that's definitely enough. Even for a sports car, that's enough. Something like a regular Corvette, base 911, something like that. That's plenty of power. But when you look at supercars, and considering the price of the NSX, which we'll get to in a little bit, it's really not that much power. I mean, every supercar today is playing in the 600 horsepower range. Huracan, all the McLarens, 488, all those things. And even your basic car, not basic, but your cheaper cars, your much cheaper cars, Corvette Z06, Dodge Viper, playing in the 600 horsepower range, well into the 600 horsepower range for like half the money of the NSX. So that, to me, right there is a big problem. The other thing I can't help but think when I look at the new NSX is the Nissan GT-R, which is producing in some forms over 600 horsepower from the factory with just its twin-turbo V6. The NSX uses a twin-turbo 6 as well, with 2 electric motors, and is only producing a combined 573 horsepower. So, that's a bit of an issue, because when you sit back and look at it, it would stand to reason that the much older GT-R engine is better, because it's out-muscling the NSX with all of its other tricks completely by itself. And, they're both kind of the GT-R Nismo, if you want to look at it, and the NSX are both kind of in the same price range, and they're both all-wheel drive in one way or another. Of course, the GT-R is a traditional system. The NSX is the new hybrid kind of all-wheel drive system. But I would venture to guess that the GT-R Nismo probably outperforms the NSX on track. So we're dealing with 2 cars in the same price range, both twin-turbo 6, and the GT-R probably outperforms it for the same price. So that's a problem, especially like I said, considering the GT-R uses kind of the old technology. So back to the Motor Trend video for a second. He was pretty impressed with the car overall, but he had some concerns. It doesn't sound that good. And somebody in the comment sections had the perfect analogy. They said, it sounds like the car is blowing bubbles. And I know that's really bizarre, but he was spot on in that analogy, because that's exactly what it sounds like out of the tailpipe. It sounds like bubbles. So it's really weird. It's one of the most bizarre car noises I've ever heard, but whatever. I mean, I guess you can't get hung up on that. But you really get the sense, like I said, they wanted this to be a world-class competitor, and it's got the hypercar formula. It's got its regular internal combustion engine along with the hybrid powertrain. You would think it's going to produce 800 horsepower, something like that. Not that it has to, which I'm going to get to in a second, but it's got all the right stuff, and then you kind of are let down by the fact that it's only 573 horsepower, and the big letdown is the fact that it's taken so long to come out now. And the car was introduced so long ago, and it basically hasn't changed. The looks of it basically haven't changed in so long. In some ways, you almost feel like the NSX, at least I do, I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but in some ways I almost feel like the NSX has been out for a while, and owners haven't even taken delivery of the car yet. I feel like it's kind of old news, and I don't really hear in the community about anybody getting excited or like anybody really looking forward to this car, or people buying it, or people like, I can't wait to get my NSX delivered. You just don't hear a ton of fuss about it anymore, which I think is a shame, because I think that the new NSX was a real missed opportunity. So the reason why I feel like it was a bit of a missed opportunity is because, like the Motor Trend reviewer, when he was driving the car, he was very impressed with it on track. I'm sure it's a great car. I'm sure it's an awesome vehicle. And I'm sure, especially on track, the performance is impressive and it's just a lot of fun. But I think that nobody was really asking for a supercar NSX or a hybrid NSX. I think what people would have really loved to have seen was a more basic NSX, kind of back to its roots, and something that can compete with like a Corvette and a 911. I don't think anybody would complain if the new NSX was like 70 or 80 grand, not as fast, maybe doesn't have a hybrid powertrain or anything like that, a little bit more simple, focused on kind of the old stuff like the old NSX did. And I think people would have been really happy with that. I think even I would have looked at it to buy one if it was the old formula. But now, at 150 grand, it's way out of my price range and out of the price range of most people. And it's just not that accessible anymore. And you kind of don't feel like it's the same type of car anymore. It feels like it's very different. Now, I'm not one of these people who's against new technology. I know things have to change. That's evolution. That's the way of the world. That's how things work. And most of the time, it's a good thing. And, you could have evolved the NSX in a different way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I really don't think that anyone would have been upset. I don't think that people really wanted necessarily this direction for the new NSX. And you can't cater to everybody. If you cater to what people want, Porsches would still be exactly the same as they were 30 years ago, because that's how Porsche people are. Corvette people too. Every new Corvette comes out, and every old Corvette guy's like, oh my God, it's horrible, and they ruined it. And then they're like, oh, this is actually really good. So that's just kind of how things go. But I personally, and I think many people, would have much preferred to see a simpler, more inexpensive, simpler, I guess that's a word, or more simple NSX that's cheaper, more accessible to everybody else. And it doesn't have to be crazy and compete with, 500, 600 horsepower cars. If you just made it with like 450, 500 horsepower, it would have been fine. And lightweight, made it really light, it would have been an awesome car. Put it in the range of the F-Type and the Corvette and the 911. Like I said, put it in that range, and it would be one hell of a star. And I think that it would really sell well. The new NSX, I don't know. I don't really see it selling well. I don't think that many people are going to buy it. Like I said, I don't think a lot of people are excited about it. But I will reserve final judgment of the car. Maybe if by some miracle I get to drive one. And of course, now I'm being a very negative Nancy here. So to look at the NSX with a totally open mind, I think it is going to be an awesome car. I guess I'm just being so negative. I'm a little bit let down because I wanted something different. And when it finally came out, I watched that review and I was really excited for it. And they just weren't really blown away by it. And since then, I've seen some other ones, and it's just not really like winning over hearts yet. And maybe it will in the future. Maybe it's just one of those things that takes a little bit of time. But for how long we've waited, and for the price, and for the hype, and everything else, I wanted that car to just blow everybody out of the water and just blow you away when you drove it, and I'm just not getting that vibe so far. So to finish up the video here, those are just kind of my thoughts on the new NSX. And again, I don't want to be totally negative. Looking at the new NSX, I think it looks amazing, and I'm sure if it looks that good in video and in pictures, I'm sure it's going to look really, really good in person. So hopefully I get to see one soon. And I can't really say anything. Having not driven it, I have no right to sit up here and say that it's any kind of disappointment whatsoever. So maybe by some miracle, I will get to drive one day, and then I can make a final judgment on the car. But anyway, as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Always appreciated. If you're stopping in for the first time, please subscribe. Take care. Have a great day.